Perfect. Welcome. We are recording. There we go. So welcome to the Power of Partnerships and Community to Drive Impact with the Marketers Network of the U.S. Canada B Corp. We are so excited to have you here today. Before we dive in, though, we'd love to give you a little bit of background on today's discussion and our group. Alicia, can you take it away, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks everyone for being here. Now that the chat works, feel free to drop in who you are and your pronouns and where you are joining us from. Welcome. My name is Alicia Schultz. I am a co-lead of the U.S. Canada B Corp Marketers Network, along with Tim Frick, Kendra Peavy, and Paul Faith. Today, we'll be discussing the power of strategic partnerships and community building to drive social and environmental impact. In this session, you'll hear from B Corp leaders and community partners about how they have established and nurtured effective long-term partnerships that drive measurable results for multiple stakeholders. On our panel today, we're very excited to hear from Paul Snyder, Executive Vice President of Stewardship at Tillamook Country Creamery, Kate Williams, CEO at 1% for the Planet, and Atlanta McElraith, Director of Social Impact and Activation at Timberland. We'll be hearing stories from each about how their organizations tackle this work and have time for Q&A. But before we dive in, for those of you who may not be familiar, the U.S. Canada B Corp Marketers Network is a professional network within the B Corp community. As a professional network, our purpose is to increase a sense of community, collaboration, and partnerships between U.S. and Canada-based B Corps marketers, to amplify and educate consumers and businesses about the unique value of B Corp certification, share best practices, tools, and expertise that allow purpose-driven marketers to succeed and prove the ROI of their work, as well as emphasize and adhere to ethical marketing best practices, which is the collective impact that we hope to create with today's meeting. If you'd like to learn more about B Corp certification, please visit bcorporation.net, or if you're already a part of the B Corp community and would like to learn more about the US Canada Marketers Network, you can join and follow our group on the Beehive. Also, of course, if you have questions during today's sessions, feel free to put them in the chat or Q&A, and we'll definitely make sure to get to them throughout the presentation. With that said, take it away, Kendra.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Alicia. So we are going to kick off today's discussion with a quick overview of from our panelists. Then we're going to dive into insights and takeaways and hopefully some really tangible tips that you can bring into your own partnerships and community building activities. And then we're going to open it up to attendee Q&A so that you can ask the questions that we might not have covered in the initial part of our discussion. So without further ado, we're going to kick things off. Today's panelists, as Alicia mentioned, we have Kate, Paul in Atlanta. And if we could, Kate, could each of you tell us a little bit about your roles, your responsibilities, and what you do? Kate, please kick us off.
Sure. So my name's Kate Williams, she, her pronouns, and I'm CEO of 1% for the Planet. I'm doing this call from Vermont, where our headquarters are. I have a beautiful member photo of birches behind me. And we have a global network of about 6,000 members, and a group of those, a subset of those are what we call our B1s, and those are B Corps that are also 1% for the Planet members. That's about 250 at this point, which is great. And basically our model works very compatibly with B Lab. So we are a model that has a simple repeated action that companies do year over year together. And, we drive big change in that way. And the repeated action is annual giving at the level of 1% of sales, and the dues payment to B Lab counts toward that 1% because B Lab is one of our approved partners, because we believe that the work of B Lab drives impact and in line with what we're seeking to accomplish. So those B1s are sort of able to maximize that overlap, but also do additional giving from there. So I'll stop there. Is that what's needed? Okay, perfect.
Appreciate it. Paul.
Thanks very much, Kendra. So good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Paul Snyder, the Executive Vice President of Stewardship at the Tillamook County Creamery Association. We are a 114-year-old farmer-owned dairy cooperative based on the coast of Oregon. You will have seen our products in your dairy case, both our cheese, yogurt, ice cream, and a whole host of other things. My job here at the company, in most other companies, I'd be called head of corporate affairs because we've got communications and government relations and that kind of stuff. But really core to my position is our stewardship charter. In 2017, our board of directors voted into effect this charter, which directs management as a matter of policy to take into consideration the aspirations and needs of 6 stakeholders: our cows, our farms, our ecosystems, our consumers, our employees, and our communities. So my job is to make sure that every day we're not only delivering delicious dairy products out into the market, but we're doing it in such a way that we serve the interests of those stakeholders. And that's what I do.
Wonderful. Thank you, Paul. Atlanta?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Atlanta McElraith, and as you heard, I work for Timberland. We make boots and shoes and clothes and gear, and you may know us for our iconic yellow boot, and we are just celebrating the 50th anniversary of the boot this year. As a brand, we have a vision of a greener and more equitable future. And my role is really, a large part of my role is really forging partnerships that help us bring that vision to life in communities around the globe. So there's a partnership piece to my role. We also have we're in our 31st year of offering employees paid time to do community service. So full-time employees get 40 paid hours a year to serve in their communities. And so I work with a team of people around the world who help create meaningful opportunities for our employees to serve around the world. I also work on internal and external communications related to our purpose and our values. And I look for ways to activate and engage our consumers and our employees in our values as well.
Wonderful. Wow. Well, I am so excited to have the 3 of you here today to share your experience with us. Clearly, it is vast, and there's going to be so much for our attendees to take away as it relates to understanding what partnerships mean today, how they work within your organization, and hopefully these tangible takeaways that they can then implement in their own. And so the best way we thought to actually do this would be to share a case study, an example of partnerships working in your organization. And so, Kate, if you wouldn't mind kicking us off with your own experience.
Sure, I'm happy to. And basically, 1% for the planet is all partnerships. I mean, that is how we drive change and create impact in the world. So what we're kind of working on is making direct partnerships between the business sector and the nonprofit sector, because nonprofits are able to take action and drive change where there isn't a market or isn't yet a market or isn't a viable market. And so they're able to act quickly to drive impact, in that space which is not a marketplace. And so what we're doing is we're saying, hey, the marketplace over here generates resources. Let's get some of those resources over here. So then those businesses and nonprofits together are able to create change at a different scale than either one of them could alone. And so we have, as I mentioned, about 6,000 members, many of whom are giving to more than one nonprofit partner. So we have literally thousands of partnerships each year. So it's always very challenging to have to pick just one to feature. But I was thinking about I thought it would be appropriate to pick one of our B1s. So one of our B Corps, that's also a 1% for the Planet member. So Peak Design is the one I picked, and they're a really fabulous, thoughtful, very intentional company. And it's what we really love to see and sort of use as an example for other companies, because what they've really done is sort of taken advantage of the opportunity to say, hey, giving isn't just something you do at the end of the year when you sort of see what you have left over and then you kind of see what suits your fancy and you make a gift. It's actually something that you can really move intentionally into the center of your operations and strategy and figure out, how do we use the act of philanthropy in the context of all that we're trying to accomplish to drive change in a way that, is bigger than what we could do if we did not do this. And so they've been super intentional about that. They've used their giving to address some of their their carbon footprint. And then they've also, and this is the kind of specific partnership I wanted to feature, they've also been really intentional about how do we use our giving to drive change on the ground in the way that hopefully changes the larger story. So what they do is they give to both wilderness conservation organizations, and in particular, they give to the Conservation Alliance and Cal Wild. So really direct protection of on the ground wilderness. And they also give to the Theodore Roosevelt, let me get their name right, the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, which is more of a hunting and fishing group, which is can sometimes be controversial in the wilderness space, because there can be those voices that are like, hey, that's not, those aren't the people who are protecting the wilderness. And Peak Design has been super intentional about that, because they really are wanting to make the case that wilderness and healthy landscapes are not a partisan issue. So we want to give to the quote more Republican type of conservation group, as well as the quote more Democratic, because they're trying to make the point we have to all come together. And so they've been very intentional and effective about doing that. And they tell really powerful stories on their website. If you're interested in checking it out, if you go to their Peak Design action, I think taking action, and I'll drop a link in for you, but they do a really terrific job of describing all of their sort of sustainability and change efforts, and then situating these specific nonprofit partnerships within that. And so you can really understand how they're thinking about these nonprofit partnerships as a lever for change. So I'll stop there, and I will drop a link in for everyone to check out their page.
Thanks. That's great, Kate. And I know we do have 1% for the Planet members on this webinar today. And as one, I know for me, just the resources of connecting businesses to potential partners is so that you can be smarter in your giving is something that I have always found to be really crucial to the process of trying to do good. Okay, Paul.
So like Kate, so much of our work is done through external partnerships, either with the folks we call our customers. So for us, those are the grocery stores that carry our products, or nonprofits, either out in Tillamook County or in various other places. So I had a lot to choose from when deciding what to highlight today. But given the audience, I decided to talk a little bit about a partnership we've had with the American Farmland Trust, because it was really spearheaded by our marketing group. So COVID hits and our marketing group says, well, all of our marketing plans are no good anymore. What are we going to do? And so they came to us in stewardship, and we formed a partnership with the American Farmland Trust, and it was called All for Farmers. And what it essentially addressed was the fact that there's a lot of farmland that's going out of rural communities. It's becoming developed, and a lot of farmers are struggling, in particular, farmers from disadvantaged groups. And so as a result, what we did is we did direct grants to farms. But really the big thing we did is we did all the underwriting on their Brighter Futures Fund. That's a fund that helps on-farm training, on-farm economic support, and other things that help farms survive. Since 2020, we've donated about 2.1 million to the American Farmland Trust for that. As a result, we've permanently protected over 10,000 acres of farmland, and that's done through conservation easements. And so, but it's been a really great program, because also that underwriting we did to the Brighter Future Fund brought in an incremental $1.2 million that they wouldn't have had before. So we like this partnership a lot because we were having a multiplier effect through it. One of the bigger things that we've done with them was a marketing activation last fall, actually. And so in October of 2022, we hosted an All for Farmers virtual auction on eBay. This was a week-long effort that featured a range of never-before offered items or experiences. And all proceeds from the auction itself were donated directly to the American Farmland Trust. We had things like, we had a 1962 Volkswagen bus that we've painted with our Tillamook logo and colors. We call it a young bus. We auctioned off a year's worth of groceries, an overnight party in our Tillamook Creamery, which is a visitor center we have on the coast, and a whole bunch of other things. And it was very successful. We garnered over 200 million impressions as a result of it. We got over 330 PR placements, and we raised over $55,000. And so this was an opportunity which doesn't come along a lot, which is when it comes to stewardship or corporate responsibility or those types of things, you're always looking for a way to engage your consumers, your fans, to actually have them take action as opposed to just sort of admiring what you're doing or hearing what you're doing, actually take action on what you're doing. And so that's why we really like this, because this allowed a lot of our fans, a lot of our consumers to take action. And so a really great and successful program that we're awfully proud of. I think that's under 3 minutes, Kendra.
Yeah, no, wow. First off, amazing. Congratulations on those results. Those are some serious numbers, and not only in reach, but in dollars. So I love the multifaceted approach y'all took with that, and action, gosh, is so important to that engagement. That's terrific. So Atlanta, we'd love to hear from you now.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So I actually have 2 examples to share. So I may go a little over 3 minutes, but there are 2 different sorts of partnerships. So one is a partnership that we had with American Forest for a number of years. And our Timberland's logo is a tree, and we've been doing a lot of tree planting programs around the globe for many years. And we wanted to bring some of that tree planting to North America. So we partnered with American Forests on an activation that we offered to our consumers, which was part of a campaign we called Plant the Change. And at checkout, if you were in a store, you were invited to, and we've all experienced this at different retailers, I know, but we invited our consumers to donate $1 to plant a tree with American Forests. And then if you were an online consumer, you were invited to downgrade your shipping from 3-day to ground shipping. And then we would donate $1 to American Forest. And we seeded this whole effort by making a sizable donation to American Forest. So we had some skin in the game as well. But the rest of it was really just activating and inviting our consumers to join in. And so over the course of the 3 years that we ran the campaign, we raised over $1 million for American Forests. Again, not our money entirely. Our consumers bore the brunt of that, but we got great feedback on it. Our store staff really enjoyed the opportunity to share that campaign because it was a super easy message, really easy for consumers to understand. So it really worked in that sort of 15 seconds you have with a consumer when they're paying for a product. And it was super successful, and we all really enjoyed it, and it exceeded our expectations. So that's sort of one opportunity we had to engage our consumers. The other effort I wanted to share about, or the partnership that we have, is with a small nonprofit called Constant Development. And this partnership really grew out of the racial reckoning that happened in the US in the wake of George Floyd's murder in 2020, when everyone was taking, or a lot of corporations, including Timberland, were taking a good, long, hard look at ourselves and what were we doing, what have we been doing to really contribute to Black and Brown communities around the country. And one of the things in that inquiry we were going through, we realized that in 2019, less than 7% of the professional design industry identified themselves as Black, Indigenous, or people of color. So there's a huge need to diversify that industry. And one of the things, the jobs or roles that we hire and have a constant need for, are product designers. So like many other brands, we worked with an organization to sort of funnel young and emerging design talent into our organization. So we have this great program for emerging adult designers. But when we really started thinking about where are those designers coming from and how do we ensure a steady pipeline of diverse talent that actually makes it to be emerging adult talent, we realized that we really wanted to start working with kids in middle schools. And so we partnered with this organization called Constant Development. that is run by two amazing creative souls, both of whom Timberland has since hired to be designers, footwear designers on our team, and they now run constant development as a side gig. But we created a program where we go into middle schools and run a 6-week program with 6th to 9th graders, teaching them the basics of footwear design. And we have this whole curriculum and introduce them to other people who work in design that look like them, people who design colors or map trends, and on this whole sort of introducing them to a range of opportunities that are related to design. And then the kids coming out of this program who have the winning designs, we have a makerspace in our office, and at the graduation ceremony, we were able to present them with their footwear drawing that had manifested itself into an actual shoe, which was pretty amazing for these kids. So it's a program that we've run 3 times now in middle schools in the New York area. And then for the 50th anniversary of the boot, we've been doing 1-day workshops that sort of synopsis of that experience for kids in various cities up and down the 95 corridor, which are really important to propelling our brand to where it is today. So Kendra, I believe you have a video of the graduation from the 6-week program.
Great, we'll play it right now. Thanks, Atlanta.
Great, thanks.
Constant development and Timberland program made me feel creative and inspired and encouraged to keep designing shoes.
This program was so needed. We started it a year ago during COVID. And in our district at the time, we were all just trying to meet the academic needs of the students. But this program not only facilitated their social and emotional piece, it really helped them to facilitate what they see for themselves in the future.
I really find joy and peace in just designing and just sketching, and finally being able to express myself is just amazing, and I'm very thankful for all the support.
Like they say, if you really do put your mind to it, it can happen.
Great. What I love about this, your examples, Atlanta, one is that you are a for-profit brand, and you found a way with your partnership with American Forest to to move product and engage consumers in a consumer way, but also give back in the process in a meaningful with meaningful dollar amount as well. And then hear how you're looking at the future of future forward and really getting into the community in a different way to educate, evolve, and develop more opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
It's really wonderful. Thank you for sharing that video with us. Now we're going to some questions and hopefully get some answers to drive this conversation forward. And I would love for us to start with each one of you just talking to us about how you define partnerships, because I think that there's a lot of ways to come at it. We've surveyed our community in the past, and like some people just think, oh, partnership, social media activation, but there's so much more, and it encompasses so much more. So Paul, why don't you kick us off by defining partnerships?
For me, I guess it's getting something done that you couldn't individually apart, right? When I think about like we did an effort where we were training nonprofits in a rural community on how to be better grant writers. We had the resources to make that happen, but we didn't have the expertise, right? And so we partnered with Family Works Umpqua, which is a great local nonprofit because they have the state's best grant writing trainer. So we had the money to pay for the training, and they had the expertise. Neither of us could have done that separately. I mean, that seems fairly simplistic, but that's how I feel about partnerships.
Great. Kate?
For us, it's a pretty specific definition because it's part of what we certify each year. So in the 1% for the Planet ecosystem, partnerships are defined relationship between two entities, a business and a nonprofit. And there's it's more than a transaction. There is a sort of shared exchange of resources. So the business is giving money, in kind goods, and volunteer time in whatever combination they decide. It may be more of one than the other. And the nonprofit in return is driving the impact on the ground. I mean, that's their contribution to the partnership. And often there's also a flow of storytelling and, sort of shared storytelling there. But we really try and, when we say partnerships, that's what we mean. And that's been really important because we actually get approached by a lot of, hey, we'd love to partner with you on this like story. And for us, it's like, there has to be that sort of mutual, at least, it happens over at least the course of a year. So there's some time commitment as well that goes with it.
Mm-hmm. And for us, I don't think, I realize we have partnerships in so many different contexts. We have business to business partnerships, business to nonprofit partnerships. So really, I think if you sort of summarize, I think partnership is really an alliance forged around a notion of mutual benefit. And like Paul mentioned, it's sort of one of those things where the sum of the parts is greater than, or what is it? The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. When you come together, and that you're able to activate something more powerfully with you each bringing your respective strengths to the conversation to really drive a shared vision forward.
Great. And while I have you, Atlanta, can you talk to us about community for Timberland and how you define that?
Again, so many different types of communities, the internal community, the external community. When we think about where we want to have an impact, we used to talk about it in terms of where we live and work, and we're all over the world. But actually, sort of as we think about issues like the climate crisis, that sense of community is way broader than that. And if you think about where we've been planting trees around the world, we don't necessarily have offices or employees in those areas. So, we define community or a sense of community as just that shared, it's again, a sort of a shared sense of a common space that we share and we all want to contribute and make it better. It's not a very official definition there, but it's the best I can do in this moment.
No, well, that's great. I mean, and a lot of people, part of the community is understanding who your stakeholders are that define that community too. So who is it that you're impacting? Who do you want to be bringing into your community, especially as you're thinking about partnerships to grow business and to grow, how can you reach out to different folks and bring them in? So
yeah, and stakeholders, that's a great word. I mean, we have many different types of stakeholders, as everybody does, but, we also are very mindful of the workers and who make our products and the communities where they are located. And so our parent company, VF, has a program where we're certainly investing in the worker communities and making sure they have access to clean water and childcare and things like that. So it's a very broad definition for us. Certainly.
Great. Paul, I would love for you to talk a little about what you look for in a partnership.
I mean, honestly, doers. One of the things, having worked in various ways in the nonprofit community or in partnerships in business over 20 or 25 years, is, I'm sure there's some consultants on the phone. So if there's a 2x2 box between inspiration and vision and execution, of course, you want someone with a great inspiration, vision, and great execution. But if I have to choose between great execution or great vision, I'd rather just partner with someone who's an executor. Because quite frankly, it's really, really frustrating to be partnered up with someone I found that's got a great vision or has got a really inspiring mission, but they don't execute very well. So that for me, that's number one. I also look for in a partnership someone who, I don't know, it's necessarily growth, but there's some sort of vitality around it. They're moving, they're shaking, they're disrupting. I guess it's more about some thought leadership or some pressing of the envelope, just someone who's not just basically running a widget machine. Is something that I look for. Always looking for fellow B Corps to partner with. That's something that's a filter for us. And I guess the last thing I would say is, what's really fun for me in my job is when someone comes to us looking for us to partner with them, not just for money, but to join an effort that in a way that we haven't thought of before. And so that's where that sort of reverses the flow, where somebody's looking for a partnership with us in a way that we're going, oh, that is an incredible effort for us to be a part of. Yes, let's do that. So I like people that are, bring us ideas.
That's great. I love the word vitality. I don't know, there's
Mm.
something about that partnerships really do, they have to come to life, right? To work and being able to not only envision something big, but do, and then, bring that energy to it to make it successful, is great. I love that word choice. Anybody else have a comment on what you look for in partnerships?
I mean, one of the things we look for is alignment in a vision, and also sort of that a conversation about how all the different ways the partnership could evolve. We're interested in not just, writing a check to someone, but looking at what are the other ways we can contribute to that organization to help it build its capacity or achieve its vision. So we definitely look for partners that we can wholeheartedly engage our team to support as well. So that's also a conversation. If we have a partner that we can write a check to and they'll do the work, that's, we'll certainly consider that, of course, but also if there's a partner that potentially has opportunities for employees to plug into around the world and they could do volunteering with them, if there are ways to have a multifaceted partnership with an organization, that would, we always enjoy that opportunity as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. And Kate, touching so many, like you're kind of the partnership connector, right? Because you're bringing brands with these nonprofits. So what do you see what tactics work best to help with building and engaging community through partnerships?
It's a really great question, and it sort of is the work. But I have a few things that I'd say. One is like for us, the end goal of, so the best partnerships are where it's highly mutual and power is shared as much as possible. So, and that looks really different in different settings. So there may be a case where what the nonprofit most needs to drive effective impact is just money and no obligation to do a whole lot of other stuff. They need to just be able to allocate their full focus on that. And so if there's a business that's like, great, that works well for us too, our resources can fuel your impact and we're all that's great. And so it's very simple, but it's very powerful, and everyone's needs are represented. In other cases, there are those opportunities like Atlanta you were describing, where there can be more sort of facets to the partnership, and we really what we try and do, so getting to the tactics, is to help develop that clarity of understanding. So on the business's side, like, what do you need? What are your intentions? What's the impact you're trying to create? What's the problem you're trying to solve? What's the brand story you're hoping to tell? Who are the consumers that you think will, all of those components are totally legit. We want these partnerships to be additive to the business. And then who are the nonprofits for whom that's going to be a good fit, because they definitely are out there. And so, we really try and create those places where there can be that mutuality and that kind of shared power as much as possible.
Love that. Mutuality and shared power. That's great. So how do you define and measure a successful partnership? Paul shared some great stats in terms of how, with his case of how Tillamook is measuring success. Atlanta, how do you look at success in your partnerships?
Well, when we forge a partnership with someone, we create an agreement around what the scope of the partnership is, what are the goals of it, what are the measures of it. And so we sort of have this roadmap that helps us track and measure our impact. So I think it's all about sort of how it aligns to what we originally scoped. I mean, obviously there's room to, if you're noticing a need that you didn't notice at first, and there's room to adapt those agreements. But I think sort of it's important to have that roadmap just to make sure you're all aligned on expectations and no one has an expectation that isn't met because it wasn't actually covered or agreed upon. And you'd be surprised at sort of how many expectations there can be on both sides, which makes it really important to kind of put them somewhere in a shared roadmap, so you can define what's successful and what isn't. And then also, we always do sort of a post-mortem on a partnership to understand like what we could have done better as a partner for them, or to, we sort of look at the partnership, how could it have been better? What could we have done better? What might the partner have done better? Just so that we can make sure that every partnership is a learning experience. We want to be the type of partner that you walk away from working with us and, that an organization would recommend us to be a partner. So we're always looking for that sort of continuous improvement and insight into how we did. But we try to align on measures, beforehand, so we know what we're measuring at the end of the partnership.
That makes sense. And Paul, you did, like I said, you shared so many great stats in your case. What as you're going into programs, do you have a set approach to defining success, or how do you approach it?
I think it's very similar to what Atlanta said. You have metrics and milestones, and make sure that you're on course for those. I would say that successful partnership, that's a big word to say it's successful, as opposed to satisfactory partnership. Right. So for me, I think of like, okay, if we hit all of our benchmarks and goals and did everything that we thought we were going to do, that's a satisfactory partnership. For me, a successful partnership, or when things happen, good impacts happen that you didn't anticipate because of how dynamic and vital the partnership was. So I like to grade those two things, or have two different levels there, between satisfactory and successful for myself. I've been spoiled. I've had so many projects that I've been fortunate to be a part of that have had benefits that I never dreamed of when you started them. I think that's part of the beauty of corporate responsibility or sustainability or social impact, or the B Corp world. It's sort of what makes, I think, our space kind of special. Last thing is postmortems. I couldn't agree more, to actually have the rigor to go back and say what, stop, start, continue, what went well, what didn't go well, however you want to do it. We're all so much on a hamster wheel, spinning all the time. We go from one thing to the next without stopping to think about that. So I couldn't recommend that more, to have successful or satisfactory partnerships going forward.
That's great. Okay, we have a few more questions. I want to be sensitive to time that we have here. So let's talk to our attendees. What should their organizations, that might be new to partnerships, look for as they're getting into this? And I'll let any one of you take this.
I think they should look for brands or partners who they think are compatible, or who have that shared vision. Sometimes someone will reach out to me about something that sort of isn't in our scope. And, I feel like that's fine. I mean, you can always try, but you're going to be more successful if you look for a brand that actually is focused on that particular issue, So I think it's important to look for for organizations to look to find what that area of compatibility is and sort of hone in on that when making your pitch. I think you also want to look at what the potential partners, if you're looking to partner with a brand, for instance, sort of what's the track record of that brand? What have they done in the past? Are there ideas you have that are sort of iterations of what they've already done, or are they that plus? Because I think that often, we don't necessarily have the bandwidth to do something entirely new. And maybe it's a good place to start with something, a newer iteration of something we've already done. So it seems familiar and not like it's going to take a lot of resources on our side.
Mm-hmm. And that shared values, Atlanta, is very much, tied to authenticity. So having brand alignment, meaning so that your community, your customer understands why you're doing this partnership or why you're representing this cause, because it's authentic to the brand and what you're trying to achieve, which will then hopefully give you that greater engagement and impact that you're looking for. So I really like reiterating the importance of values.
Yeah, and we vet the organizations that we're going to partner with and invest in and talk to previous partners of theirs, and you should do the same. The org should do the same of the brands that they're interested in working with.
Yeah. And Kate, so, we in your case studies and the examples you've shared, you've kind of shown, how bringing partners together, bringing nonprofits together with for-profits can create this community. But any additional things you'd like to add on what ways we can tap partnerships to build community?
Yeah, I think maybe I'll just underscore intentionality. So kind of starting with what are you trying to accomplish? Because it's always better for everyone involved if you're not just sort of saying, yeah, partnerships are good, we're going to do partnerships, but more like we're headed in this direction. We have these goals that we're trying to reach. And therefore, we've decided that partnerships with nonprofits or other brands, whatever the partnerships may be, are one of the levers that we can, press to achieve that goal. So that's our intention. And so therefore, then you can dive into who are the partners. I think it's really important to kind of go slow to go fast and to go well, because I think having that clarity of intention and strategic intent is really important. I think partnerships are most effective when they come together in that context, where if you start with the partnership and then try and figure out what the goals are, it can sometimes get a little muddied and that sort of mutuality can get lost.
I like that. So while we have you here, I just thought it might be nice to understand what advice has helped you be a more impactful leader. Paul, if you wouldn't mind sharing that with us, then we'll go across the panel.
Well, I've been the grateful recipient of a lot of advice in my life. Honestly, I think the one that I seem to return to a lot is around active listening. Why are you listening and why are you speaking? And so I often think about how my impact as a leader has been helped by making sure that I'm trying to remind myself to have the discipline to listen to understand as opposed to listen to respond. Those are two really different things. And so that I think has been one of the things that certainly has helped me.
Great, thanks. Atlanta?
It's funny, that was exactly what I was going to say, because it's one of the 7 habits of highly effective people, but it is a really important part of any partnership, and just being a leader is listening and making sure that the people you're engaging are truly enrolled in what you're doing and not just saying yes, because if they're just saying yes, you're not really leading. Leading is more effective when the people that you are attempting to lead, or the effort, the stakeholders are truly enrolled. They share the vision with you, and you're going to have a much more pleasant and effective experience if that is the case.
Wonderful. And Kate?
I think for me, the key It's always a journey, but two key components are, one, providing clarity of direction that is sourced collaboratively, but I need to provide the clarity of like, this is where we've agreed that we're going to head. And then coupling that with creating the conditions for everyone, and, that's staff, partners, community, to be wildly successful in their roles on that journey to get to that clear place that we've identified. And and as part of that, I try to be really transparent about that. Like I say to my staff, it's my job to create the conditions for you to be wildly successful. I hopefully can listen and know what that is a lot of the time. And a lot of the times you're going to have to probably tell me and remind me and help me to see that. So I think being transparent about what you're trying to accomplish as a leader, and ultimately for me, that means getting me out of the way and creating those conditions, but needing feedback to get there.
Wonderful. Active listening, shared vision, clarity, and creating the environment for success. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you. I want to start by saying thank you so much for fielding these questions. Now we're going to open it up to our attendees and look in the chat and see what kind of questions everyone has.
Yeah, we've been pulling them, so I've got a couple ready for y'all. The group knows that 1% for the Planet has a whole vetting process for their nonprofits, but we'd love to hear a little bit from Tillamook and Timberland as to how you vet and select your nonprofit partners.
Yeah, so we basically start with Google sometimes, or start with our friends. We get if we start with Google and it's just a cold search, we're looking for someone who's doing something in XYZ community, we will vet an organization by Google search. We do a Google News search to make sure there's no negative press about that organization. If there is, it's just something to raise in the conversation that we have with them. We look at Charity Navigator, as just sort of a benchmark, but it's not the be all and end all. So it's just sort of one piece of the pie that we look at. But, again, if there's something there that's sort of unusual, we would probably have a conversation. And then we talk with past partners. And also, obviously, with the organization itself, if we sort of feel like it's an organization we want to reach out to, then we will talk to them. So that's basically how we look for partners.
Yeah, we do a lot of the same things. We look at Form 990s. What do their finances look like? What are they saying that they're spending money on? We try also very hard to remind ourselves that, obviously, there are different modes of communication and articulation of vision and all the rest of that. And so not only solely, relying on written word, but to interview and to ask questions, ask hard questions, and ask those as soon as possible, or as far up in the process as possible. Because I guarantee you, if you have an unanswered question or an unexpressed question to a potential partner, that is going to come back to you later on sometime in the process. And so, yeah, web searches, interviewing, getting recommendations, and just, again, looking towards, their execution and their impact, and what can they show that they're doing rather than just telling you that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to chime in because I feel like I got to make a little plug for 1% here, and also just describe our model to make sure it's understood, because it's really interesting hearing what both of you are saying. And that's a lot of what we solve for our members. So what we're able to do is speak with our members and say, hey, let's develop the matrix of what you're trying to accomplish with your partnerships. And then we, with our expertise and our sort of system for nonprofit sourcing, and we have about 6,000 nonprofits that we have already approved, and we're always bringing new ones in. We can develop a set of nonprofits that we can enable our companies to interact with in whatever way helps them to make a decision. So in some cases, it is some presentations, some Q&A, some direct conversations, opportunity to ask the hard questions. But what we're able to do is often source nonprofits that you may not find in a Google search, because we were able to kind of pull them up differently. We've developed 4 impact areas. And I don't want to take up too much time here, but I really do just want to underscore that the sourcing of partners to meet your goals and the ability to kind of understand and vet those is, it is an involved process, as you both have just described. And that's one of the things that, we're trying to create a system that enables you to get a better set of nonprofits that you can then sort of pressure test beyond the pressure testing we've already done, so that there can be that high level of confidence moving forward.
Yeah, wonderful. I love that, because the first page of Google does not have all the things that you are ever going to need or want. So really love that. All right, we've got a few more minutes, so we are not going to get to all of the Q&A, but I do want to wrap up with this last one, which is, if B Corps or other organizations have interest in partnering with other B Corps, what is the best way to make that connection and communicate with them? What do we all think is sort of the best process for communicating with each other around these initiatives we'd like to do together?
I'll start. So yeah, I mean, obviously the B Corp platforms are a great way to find those out, but trying to establish a partnership with someone, you're applying for a job, right? You're saying, let's do a job together. And so I think the same rules apply. The ones that, quite frankly, get most of my attention are when they get recommended to me. Hey, there's this person doing this really cool thing. Someone who we know mutually. That's a really impactful way to get in front of someone and to get their attention, so you can make your pitch. Is, like I said, just like applying for a job. Get inside the walls.
Great, Alicia, we're gonna maybe there's a way we can capture some of the questions and follow up outside of the session today, just in case if there's any that we didn't touch on.
We've already done that, yes.
Perfect. Great. So before we close out, we just wanted to kind of let you know what's up next for everyone who's still here. We've got a webinar coming up on October 19th, Mobilizing B Corp Impact on Giving Tuesday. So please RSVP for that if you'd like to hear more. Tim, can we provide the link in the...
Done.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're
We're always
welcome.
for diverse voices to share best practices. So please reach out to get involved or follow along on our activities on Beehive. If you're a B Corp, join the Marketers Network Beehive group, and we have a link for that. And if not, sign up for emails at usca.bcorporation.net to know what's happening in the B Corp world. I would like to personally thank each one of you for joining and for providing such valuable takeaways and insights and experience around building partnerships and community. Thank you so much, Kate, Paul in Atlanta, for being here today and being so open with your experience. And thanks to everyone else who joined and listened in. We hope that you thought this was a helpful conversation, and that you'll be able to take this back to your organization and do something powerful with it. So thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.